Well, obviously, this is the pilot of Bullshit at the Barbers. We're obviously not in the Barbers right now, but that's because it's a pilot, so thank you for coming. Sam Wilkinson, you've fought and coached all over the world. That's something that we definitely want to get into. Obviously, we're aware that injury affected the trajectory of your career, so I would like to get into that. And it'd be really good to speak to you, Eddie, about how you've stepped in from a different angle. Yes. You've stepped in as a coach-athlete, where you want to go with that, and how you think the generational shift has sort of made it harder for you and made it easier for you in different ways. So I think first of all, what I would like to do is speak to you about your travels, your career as a fighter, and how you've transitioned into coaching and how that's affected you sort of mentally, the injuries, for example.
So when I was young, I maybe started fighting at 16. It had been about 3 days after my 16th birthday. I'd have been in a 16-man tournament. At 70 kilo, I was maybe like 65 kilo, wet through. And it was like an adults tournament, but there wasn't really the distinguishment between kids and adults at that time, or teens and adults. There's no like cadets league or anything.
What was it? Was this MMA or was
yeah.
Yeah,
it was MMA. So it's like, I thought I was like good in that. I was like, freaking out, I'm talented, I've got this skill set or something. I kind of think that I kind of had like all this confidence. And then I got there and I absolutely bricked it, mate. When I realised what fighting was, I couldn't contain my emotions. I was feeling all this stuff and had my first fight. I managed to win it, but it was all just like instinct based. And then I'm like, oh my God, this is so much more difficult than I thought it was going to be. I thought I was a striker, but all of a sudden I'm taking everybody down and I'm submitting them. And
is that because it felt safer to do that?
It felt safer, it felt clearer, and I just didn't know to regulate the distance, but by the fourth fight I was comfortable, and then I started to feel into it, and I stood on the feet and I did a lot more striking. So I think my introduction to the sport were just, I thought it was something and it was something else, and I had to adjust to that on the fly, and that was addictive, being able to bend my natural instincts and make myself into something that maybe I wasn't born to be. Like, I didn't feel like I was meant to be a fighter or tough.
But it gives a feeling of self-control that you didn't originally have, isn't it? Where you can sort of take your base instincts and go, I'm going to override this. Like, that's not a natural thing to do for most people, is it?
I don't like my best instincts, like what it wants to do.
Yeah, I get that. I understand that, I fully understand that.
Little guy.
Yeah. So obviously you saying that you went into it thinking it was going to be something and it was something different. Do you think that was a personal thing for you, or do you think that's just because at the time, obviously, how many years ago was that?
That would have been another 15 years. Maybe.
Yeah, so MMA back then, as far as I'm aware,
isn't it? Yeah.
No one really knew what it was.
It
was still known as cage fighting, wasn't it?
Yeah,
like it was something savage. And so do you think fighters coming into the game now, do you think they still have that same realise it, like, oh shit, this isn't what I thought it was? Or do you think it's better recognised now?
I think that they understand what the sport is from an aesthetic perspective, but what it feels like is always going to be a shock to people who were not growing up fighting. And then I saw guys who grew up fighting, and that be the problem when they got in the ring.
Too much confidence.
Well, they can't control themselves.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They're unregulated. They cannot be tactical in the moment, and ultimately, when it comes to winning, that's what it is.
I can vouch for that, to be fair.
Yeah, I agree.
Because I do that. I do that. I go in there with a game plan. Like, I can box. I'm not the most talented boxer in the world, but I get in there and I think, fuck this, I'm just going to fight the cunt, because it's normal to do that, do you know what I mean? Like, and that's something I'm trying to work on now. It's an issue, so I totally understand that.
So as someone coming into the scene, like, in the modern game, how long ago did you get into MMA?
I was 17, so 17. About 4 years now, mate, which is mad.
So there's like a full-on generational gap between you two then. So when we're talking then about like getting into it now, and do we think that people getting into it now would have a bit more of an understanding of what it would be like to fight?
100%.
Do you think you've benefited from that being with Sam?
Yeah, well, UFC is massive now, and you know, like, even just like, I got into it for the game, which is weird, really.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But like, that's such a popular game, you know what I mean? The amount of people that have found out about the sport through the game, that just wasn't really an avenue, was it?
No. Are we talking like UFC 2, UFC 3?
Yeah, so UFC 2 is my first one.
Oh, geez. Okay.
Mike Tyson, man.
Nice.
But like, I that was when I first got introduced to sport. And McGregor as well was massive, mate. You got to think, like,
top
he
was
McGregor. Such a big star, mate. Like, that was how I found out what sport was McGregor, you know what I mean?
Definitely did massively popularise the game, didn't it?
It influenced everybody's game, everybody's style as well. Everybody were like long arm, wavy, Everyone was switching southpaw for a bit, trying to play like open guard cross counters, and it was noticeable in the amateur scene.
Which I hate,
watching it. Yeah.
Fucking hate those guys.
Dirty man.
Yeah, it's cheating really. Southpaw's cheating.
Yeah,
everyone
should
knows
be.
that. Yeah, so obviously, I think that's what I want to sort of dissect. Obviously, you coming in from a fighting stance, because I'm assuming you fought for a lot of years before you started coaching.
I was forced to kind of get into coaching at about 18.
Right.
So not that many years.
Yeah. I was probably like 14 to 18. I wasn't coaching, but about 18, and I was training at a gym in Leeds called AVT or Dewsbury.
I know that. Yeah. It's got a good reputation, hasn't it?
Great fighters, and I kind of were there in the. I'm going to call it when Danny was still fighting. He was fighting the UFC. There was Berkey. There was Josh Collins. There was just so many top class fighters, and then there was a load of BJJ guys who were just monsters, mate. They just monsters.
Twisting people up.
Oh yeah, and I go there. I think my coach before I was like, yeah, you're like a decent blue belt. You know, I go there and just the white belts, the blue belts, everyone killed me. Everybody killed me so easily. I was so angry about it, and I couldn't solve the problem. Like, that was what was frustrating. Like, I'm doing MMA, so I'm not doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it was different. But they were doing things that were just so far ahead of the time at that time. That's the one thing people don't get about Danny. Like, he brought in a new type of Jiu-Jitsu. He was doing leg locks before everybody was doing leg locks. He was doing rubber guard before everybody was doing it. And his gym was just infested with it, and he just creamed us. But yeah, I was forced to coach around 18. Not forced. I needed a job. I needed somewhere to train.
Right, okay, that makes sense.
Hull. So I was at AOF MMA, which is just around the corner actually,
right.
And I'd have been just teaching a couple of classes there, so I could do some PTs, and then I'd be teaching, there.
So did you have? Because from the outside looking in, this relationship very much looks like mentor protege, sort of affair. Like, did you have someone like that as well, or did you kind of just have to figure this coaching thing out yourself?
Danny was massively influential in my life, and he was big on that. And then I had great mentors in Hull, like Mark Bennett, and then I had like Mel Leafley, were a good mentor. But nobody taught me how to coach because nobody did, let's call it evidence-based practice. Like, it wasn't like that then. It was just like, this is kind of good, we'll try this. Danny was the closest thing to evidence-based practice. So I would just take what he showed me, and then at 18, I would probably just teach it, you know.
Yeah.
And then I started to learn how to kind of critically assess how solid a position was, and through my education, and then that's when I really started getting into coaching. I'd say around 21.
You've got a degree in sports science as well, haven't you? So obviously evidence-based practice for you, I'm assuming, is
massive.
Yeah, it's paramount.
You can't waste. You can waste your time on parts of the game. I've got this really good kid in the gym right now. He trains 11 hours a week, 12 hours a week, just jiu-jitsu. He's obsessed. He's like a troll though, you know. His whole thing is he focuses on troll moves, but he's only 4 to 6 months in.
Right.
So he's just no one good.
Mortal Kombat.
Well, anyone who's really good, he'll just crush him. But if he focused on the more solid parts of the game, he'd be killing it. But he's just learning this now. So it's all about your direction of force. Like, if you focus in the right direction, you're learning in the right direction, you'll get better a lot quicker, you know.
Yeah. That makes sense. I think it's the same in any game, isn't it, really? But it sounds like it's pretty important in the fight game specifically.
Yeah.
You find out pretty quickly whether or not you're learning fast, don't you? I
think in MMA, probably, because obviously I've got no experience in MMA, I've only got experience in boxing, but in MMA it's like such a wide skill set. Like, that must be difficult to sort of manoeuvre.
Yeah, I got smashed for ages, man.
Yeah, is it?
I got smashed for ages because I came in like not physically developed, really.
Right.
Yeah.
So like the basic movements in jiu-jitsu, like framing and stuff, like I could do the best technique ever, mate. Like, I was like not developed, so it was just a nightmare, mate. When you think about it now, I was just getting hammered.
Yeah.
It looked uncomfortable. It looked like.
But I wasn't asked, mate.
Yeah.
I wasn't bothered. I don't know why. When I think back now, I should have been proper like.
Yeah.
Like put off.
Disheartened.
But I wasn't, mate. I don't know why.
You did move more towards striking though.
Yeah,
because
fair.
Of that.
Naturally.
Yeah, because of the physical setup.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
It depends on the environment though, and in fairness, I'm assuming you've always trained with Sam.
Yeah, pretty much, mate.
So it depends on the environment. So obviously we've sparred once before my first fight, and the beauty was that there was a clear disparity in skill set. But what you managed to do was humble us in a way that no one else had done yet, whilst keeping it playful. So I never, at no point did I come out with that thinking, fucking hell, I just got my arse handed, it was there. I actually came out being like, I did all right there, in fairness. So maybe that's why it didn't discourage you. Because I've gone to boxing gyms in the past where basically all they did is put you through the ringer.
And
you just walked out with a fucking headache and a black eye, and you thought, this game isn't for me, it's bullshit.
It's not how you get into something, is it?
It just doesn't work. I think it's got to be playful to learn.
To learn, you want to be in a playful state. But I think to Eddie's credit, is he set up on like a journey of physical development, made his body a lot more robust, and that was part of it. And I think that this is something that people don't. There's camps in the sports world. Do the sport all the time. Do the strength and conditioning, so it bolsters the sport. Some people are doing like 5-6 S&C sessions a week. They're almost so far into that physical side of things. But if you do, your body does not have the capacity to express a move. It will not express it. So there's like physical limitations. I cannot put my chest on my thighs in a forward fold. So when I play inverted guard, there's loads of space, and I can't generate as much pressure there. So there's no, I can't do inverted guard to a high level because my body can't express that.
Yeah.
So I think that people get this twisted, like they're just doing the sport. You get the technique there. It's like Ben, he's just doing the sport. Really, his body just cannot tolerate what the sport requires of him. So he needs to get all those baseline statistics up.
So do you think he's running towards an injury? If that's is that the end?
Done that, yeah.
Okay,
He's running towards an injury. If you can't tolerate the loading, like you have someone like Christoph's pressure down onto your body or something. What are you going to do?
Savage.
You're just going to go that, are you?
Yeah.
You know, your arms are just going to fold if you can't do 40, 50 push-ups. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's probably why I've always been injured, because I've always just been so upset, whether it was rugby or boxing. I just want to do the fun stuff.
It's fun.
And S&C for me isn't fun. It's fucking hard work, you know what I mean? But I'm getting into that now because I'm aware that it's important.
Yeah, for sure. That's like where you say you've been working a bit with Jimmy. Like the programming stuff that I learnt from him, and it just really allows me to sort of like rotate between certain qualities that I need to develop, and that I found it really helpful. Even makes it like a hobby. Do you know, where S&C at the beginning is just boring, it's like, ugh. But now I find it really fun, and it's like a space of creativity in a place that's normally real rigid, right?
Yeah.
It sounds like you bring quite a fresh outlook to that style of things, where I think a lot of people view S&C as a sort of chore, and it's like something that you have to do in order to do your sport, but it sounds like you almost look at it in like a problem-solving way, similar to how you do the actual sport itself. Is that like a fair comment? Like it seems like you'll tweak and adapt and do things to find out what works best for you and your game plan, in the same way that you'll move away from certain positions that don't benefit your style. Yeah, that's quite interesting.
Yeah, to me it's a toy that I can play with and enjoy. Sometimes when you do a sport for a business, the connection to the sport can be compromised because there's all sorts of there's some elements of sanitization that you have to put into the product to make it work. Like I imagine it's the same with barbering. And you get into barbering for this, but now you're doing it for this slightly different reason. It just changes how you've got to operate. But S&C to me is free because it's not. I have to sell it, you know. It's nice, it's creative.
Yeah, and I think S&C as well, the beauty of it is even people that aren't necessarily wanting to get into combat sports, they can see the benefits of just making your body more robust.
Keep you alive. It's your vessel. It's like brushing your teeth. Anyone who doesn't do it, I'm like, you don't brush your teeth.
You don't brush your teeth.
That should be that level of social shame on not doing S&C.
You see someone with rounded shoulders, you're like, your breath stinks.
So following on from that, obviously, what I would like to delve into is your injury. So you're one of these guys at in Hull, because you've done a lot. There's like rumours about you and stuff, like, he was headed to the top, he broke his back, like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's
spinal, someone said spinal.
You hear mad shit about you. Like, you're that guy, you've got like lore almost in Hull. Well, now you do.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm like, right, I've heard so many different stories about where you were headed, what injury you've had, how it affected your career, like. Just give me a breakdown of that.
Okay, I think as an amateur, I was probably... There were no rankings in the same... Rankings just started as I was like finishing my amateur career. And I was probably the best in the country or in like the top, let's call it 3. Yeah. We didn't fight each other. That was the problem back then. It was hard to get fights. I've really struggled to get matches. When I was at 61 kilos, I stopped everyone I fought. And then I fought up at 66 and 70. So yeah, I think I was, if I'm honest, I think I was a talented young fighter, and I had a lot of ability that I didn't even realise that I had. I didn't believe in myself how I should have or could have, because I thought I wasn't talented, and I thought I was not a gifted athlete. So what I did was I just chronically overtrained and wrecked my body by like 20. But I remember at the 21, just before my hips were bad, I was like, I could fight both stances perfectly. I could jump like 3 meters off a vertical, like long jump. Excuse me. So I had a broad jump. It was really big. I could lift a lot, strong, and I was
genetic freak, you might say.
Well, I was well trained, and I had some genetics for sure.
Yeah.
And I think my genetics were better than I thought they were.
Right.
Which is pretty common, I think, as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, until they've been tested, most people don't realise where they are genetically, do they?
No, you don't, man. And I'd sparred. We're talking European standard kickboxers. I'd fought some of them, and then I was on track to do well. I was sort of like, kind of like an Arnold Allen guy. Maybe not as talented, but that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's a relatable. Yeah, it's a character for people to see. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then I tore like my labrum in a jiu-jitsu competition. I was in like a guillotine, and I kind of escaped, and my labrum went. I don't know what it was. I just kind of knew that I had one leg that worked and one that didn't.
Yeah.
And then I carried on with the match, finished that off, and I was just kind of lucky really. Like he gassed, and then I beat him like 22-0 or something, and then my leg just progressively got worse. I didn't really know what was going on. All of a sudden I couldn't kick. All of a sudden I couldn't run.
And were you still fighting during that time period, or was that?
I wasn't fighting. I just started uni, so I was just focusing on that. But I was training hardcore, twice a day.
Yeah. Putting it through the ringer. Yeah.
I was swimming in that, which is really bad for me.
And
then I was doing all these mad
just loads of
kicks.
Yeah.
The worst thing you could do.
I was obsessed with Taekwondo at the time.
Definitely not the way to go.
Yeah, man. And then I just kept doing things that made it progressively worse. Went to the doctors, got some MRIs. Torn your labrum. It was a really bad one. Camshaft for me, which is a fairly common thing, but mine was just particularly bad. And then my other leg started to go, and then I lost a lot of athleticism, and I was in a lot of pain chronically for about 1.5 to 2 years, and it was just really bad for my mental health. And when I look back, I was ravaged by it mentally, and I think that was the main problem.
But we touched on that earlier, though, didn't we?
Yeah.
Because I can attest for that. It does make you feel vulnerable.
Yeah.
It makes you feel fragile. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's the bit that plays on your head, because as a man, no matter whether even if you haven't got combat sport experience, nobody wants to feel vulnerable. That's the last thing. Yeah, it's the worst feeling ever.
Your teammates start acting different as well. Men act different around you. That's like the maddest shit. Men start like talking to you, like they're like on you with it, or like there was another coach in the gym who would be like, just basically tell me I didn't know what I was doing anymore because I'm out of the game.
Really?
When I look back at what he was saying, it's not like he didn't have a little bit of a point. Like when I honestly reflect on it, like there was things I needed to be up to date on that I wasn't able to train anymore. But he was also discounting my lifetime knowledge and all of the times that we'd trained together, and it was really rude, you know.
Yeah,
was it what he was saying, or was it the style of communication though?
It was both things. His style of communication was terrible, but he just he wanted a super cool guy, you know.
But much of a talker.
Yeah. Some people are like great. Like you meet these people in your life, they're wonderful and they're terrible.
Yeah.
And you like them and you cannot stand them. Like it's just like how it is. But yeah, anyway, so I think that was like the main thing. And then by the time I'd rehab my legs, it probably took. By the time I was about 25, they were about right. They say 2 years, but it's more like 3 or 4 before you get like that bounciness, and there's all these like upstream, downstream injuries that occurred from it. But I think that the main thing was the direction of my mental health were poor, and I just didn't believe that I could do it anymore.
Yeah,
I didn't want to be brain damaged when I'm older, because I had a girlfriend who I was deeply in love with, and I just wanted to be there for her. And I knew that my mobility was compromised now. I couldn't dodge punches the same. I was very defensively savvy back in the day, like really hard to catch a shot on.
I'd argue you still are personally,
yeah.
from my experience.
so it'd be like what I do now, but I could do it for 10 rounds instead of 4. Because my energy systems were, like, just the springiness of my body were compromised. That's the only way I could explain it. And so I was like, right, okay, if I'm going to do this, if I'm still going to do it, I'm going to take more damage. I've got to be willing to take the damage. If I'm not willing to take the damage, I can't do this sport to that level anymore. Which is just ultimately a decision I had to make. And then I'm like, right, okay, it took me a long time to kind of gather myself and then think, right, okay, I have to do something, otherwise I'm just going to be a bum who smokes joints. Do you know, all the time? It's just not good, is it?
It's not what you want to be.
No, I mean, as good as it is, it's also rubbish. You know?
Short-term fun.
Yeah, man. So I decided to move towards coaching, and that's where I was lucky to get some sort of international opportunities. You know, lucky, you could say, unlucky in some...
I don't really believe in luck with things like that. I believe in skill set and work. Like, the problem is, people that believe in luck, I think, are the ones that see where you're at. They don't see how you got there. I mean, we get to a barbering all the time.
That's
obviously, for 5 years in, you're flying, and people look at it like you've been lucky. And I know they do, because they've said stuff like that to me. I'm like, you haven't seen how much he grafted from being an apprentice. He was there every day without pay. I couldn't fucking drop hair on the floor without him catching it. You know what I mean? Like,
amazing.
I just don't believe in luck. So for me, I don't personally think that was luck. But I mean, obviously, it took you places, didn't it? Because you ended up working within a UFC gym. Am I right?
Yeah. And my understanding of what the UFC gyms were at the time were like a lot different to what it is now.
I've got no understanding of what UFC gyms are like. So break that down.
Yeah. So the UFC gyms are like an international franchise that they give martial arts players to do work, much like a Total Fitness for MMA. Right. And then there's the performance institutes, which are like the sports science labs of the UFC. So for me, no gym would employ me. Nobody would be like, oh, do you want a job? I'd be like, why am I so experienced? And I've got 2 amateurs ranked in the number 1 in the country in 2 different weight classes. So at one point it was 4 weight classes, which means you had 2 amateurs that were number 1. And then we're not getting paid.
Do you feel as though maybe gyms might have felt intimidated by that though? Because even in barbering, I've found out over the years where there's been shops that were reluctant to have me in because they were worried that I was going to take clients.
Yeah. Like, I was already working in their gyms for free.
Oh, okay, right.
So
they just
like,
didn't want to pay you.
They just didn't want to pay me. But like, also they were giving me other things which, when I reflect on it, were equivalent to perhaps a salary.
So like opportunity.
Yeah, like free PTs and stuff, which I can't knock. I mean, it kept me going, mate. Like, but you sort of want someone to put your name on, don't you? So they contacted me on Instagram. They offered me a job, and I responded to them really quickly. I got them all the information they required, and then ended up going out there, and it was just as COVID.
Where was that?
That was Oman.
Right.
So like Middle East, middle of a place called Muscat. Muscat's just like the capital there.
That's a mad place to be, though, isn't it? Like,
with martial arts at 27.
Yeah.
26, sorry, I'm 26, and I'm like, turning up there, desert, everything's made of gold. Do you know, you're like...
That sounds like a crazy cultural shift there.
Yeah, a heavily Muslim place. And then you get to learn a little bit about their lifestyle, their culture, and, you know, short of it is humans all over the planet, they're the same. They all like to do the same things. You know, no matter what they say, they like to do or what they do. The boys are still the boys. You know?
You got boys everywhere.
Yeah, for sure. But there were also some massively different things. You know, you're now in a gym that's owned. It's in an apartment complex at the bottom of it. The entire bottom floor is like a gym, owned by oil billionaires who were, you know, just absolute ballers. They live in a compound with massive walls around it. Inside the compound is like 6 to 8 mansions.
Made of gold.
Pretty much on the seafront, you know. And then it's like a jungle. Like you walk into it, the gates open, you know, it's like a jungle. There's like kids and nannies like running around everywhere. Kids are just treating the nannies like absolute shit, thinking I'm like an object. You know, they're throwing stones at me.
I was going to say, you one of the nannies in this scenario.
Pretty
one
much.
Of the kids.
I'm brought there to like teach this guy.
I want to be a UFC nanny.
Ninja nan.
Yeah. It was just a mad spot. That place were like just where they lived, and sometimes they bring me there to do PTs. But the gym itself were amazingly well kitted out. There were some amazing coaches there. There were some great guys who I met, and but everything was imported.
Right.
And that was like the problem. They hadn't had the time to home grow any Omani black belts or any Omani mixed martial artists. And all of the mixed martial artists, most of the mixed martial artists in Oman, were very inexperienced compared to how they talked.
Yeah.
So there'd be like some guy who's like a professional kickboxer, and he'd be like talking to you about how I should do this and how I should do that. He'd be like telling me what to do, and I'd be like, oh. And then I'd train with him, and I'd be like, you gotta like there's just a big gap in amount of good people per capita.
Right.
There were good people. There's a guy called Taimur who was amazing. He was an amazing grappler. He travelled all over the world.
I was just about to ask that. Has he travelled?
Yes.
Yeah.
The travellers versus the people who just lived in Oman were very different people.
Right.
And you noticed it culturally. Like they got the situation. They got what Oman was in a way that the people who never left the country didn't.
Right.
You know, extreme poverty with extreme wealth right next to each other. Yeah, it was really cool teaching there, and I met a lot of cool people. But ultimately, the company the way it ran were mental. There ain't no like laws that regulate the way they are with staff.
Just handshakes, basically.
Basically, the contracts were probably invalid, and all the guys who run the gym know everybody in the government. So if they don't want to pay you, they don't have to pay you.
Yeah, good luck
like
complaining.
Indian staff members not getting paid for 3 months. They're making £300 a month, right? And they're not getting paid. They're all living together.
Jesus
it's crazy, isn't it?
It's heavy, bro. It's heavy.
That's.
They come to you asking for money, and you're like, first it's like, I don't know, what's this guy want money from me for? This is a bit weird, because that doesn't happen in England very often, right? And then I'd ring up the other coach, like Risto. I'd be like, Risto, what do I do? These guys coming to me for money. He's like, oh yeah, it happens all the time. I'd be like, why? And he goes, well, sometimes the gym just doesn't pay the cleaners for months.
Oh my god.
So
sometimes just when they fancy it. Oh no, you're not getting paid this month.
How do you respond to that? You're just like, all right,
yeah, it's crazy.
Like, yeah.
They've got the passports. I think the manager of the cleaners doesn't directly work in the gym, but they've got the passports, and then they've got your money.
Oh my god.
So what are you going to do?
Yeah.
You can't do nothing.
I'm going to leave.
Ask one of the PTs for some money.
Mad, bro.
That's when they come to you, mate. That's
They asked me for my passport, and I was just like, no. You don't have my passport. Wherever my passport goes, I go.
That's mine.
Yeah.
Can't have that.
They were doing all sorts of dodgy stuff. Like they owed me like 4 months, 3 months money through 3 or 4 months money of all commissions. They were paying me half salary through lockdown, so I was like had very little money to survive.
Were you still out there during lockdown? Or did you
yeah, the second lockdown I was out there, and I was broke, but because I know how to live broke, because I'd been a fighter at like the end of the world.
That seems to be a thing. Like fighters who make a career of it, they've all been broke, haven't they? Like it's just part of the game. I kind of feel like the ones that haven't been broke, it's almost like they can't reach the top. They haven't gone through the struggle. Do you know what I mean? Like
you'd say that, wouldn't you? But then there's like Joe, but Joe like knows how to. He's lived in Middlesbrough, sort of like broke, hasn't he?
as
but
close
like,
as you need to get, I think. Yeah. Geographically, that can count. That's that's a risky place.
It's a rough ordeal as well.
Yeah,
it's not rough, is it? You know what I mean?
Middlesbrough and like Hull to me seem related.
That's similar. I can see similarities. I'll be honest. I feel like Hull, I love Hull.
Yeah, me too.
I feel like Hull. It feels safer than Middlesbrough.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. What Hull's got, right?
Yeah.
From an outsider's perspective, is a lot of high-level combat sport athletes.
It does.
But high-level combat sport athletes, for all they're dangerous, they tend to be pretty fucking sound.
Yeah, they're not causing bother.
They're not going out there trying to prove they're dangerous. And in Middlesbrough, I kind of feel on edge.
Yeah, it's brutal. I was walking around, you see some interesting things.
Yeah.
But like, I think that like anybody who lives there for a while, you sort of learn to know the streets, right?
Yeah.
You get comfy. I'm super surprised about the level of the way MMA has gone in Hull.
It's
the
awesome.
competition between the different gyms has basically caused it to rise up, and it's so underrated. there's guys here there's guys who people haven't really known about until recently, like Tony Shields.
He's fighting Pick Jardine, isn't he? Soon, aye.
He could.
I'll be watching that, like.
He's a beast. He's an absolute beast. And anybody who's trained with him knows how good he is. And he's been spanking everybody in stand-up. And, to be fair, when he was grappling, he was spanking most of us in grappling as well.
I didn't even realise he did that.
Dude,
I
he can
thought it came
grapple.
just from boxing.
He'd be like looking at you in like this mad way. I don't know how to describe the way he looks at you, but if you've trained with him, you'll know what I'm talking about. And then he'll be, you'd like having an armband and he'd just be like, yeah, keep pulling it, mush, break it, mush, it's all right, mate. You're just talking to you, you're just like,
it's all right, mate.
That's hilarious.
No hard feelings, mate. I've got another one.
Yeah, I've only got him boxing it, and that totally matches the energy that he had.
Yeah.
Because he's got this calm sort of savagery about him, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Like, he does definitely have that, 100%.
There's a story of him, Mel Leafley, going to his house, and he'd built a cage in his house. And then in the centre of his front room was just a canoe.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? It's just like hardcore.
Yeah.
Thinking, do they get used together, or what's the...
Nobody
what's
really
the
knows.
cage? That's surely two different activities.
Yeah,
This guy's not...
That's a guy, that's a generation you got to miss out on. If you ever get to train with Tony Eddie, you got to do it, because it's just so cool to spar somebody who's that unique. You know, he's a right-handed southpaw who can switch hit.
So he's a cheater then as well.
That's extravagant.
We've established
for a fight
that. Yeah. That's why he's winning then.
Oh, it's mad fighter. But I hope he does well in that fight. And I think bare knuckles a perfect place for him.
Yeah,
It's just,
it looks
like,
it.
I don't know if like, obviously Pick's from he's from my neck of the woods.
Yeah.
I don't know if you followed him fighting, but he's just so fucking exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the way he moves is erratic. I think that's the only way that I can explain it. Like
that might be what creating Tony.
His rhythm it's just so unpredictable. And he can...
A lot of people describe Tony like that, isn't it?
Tony's
yeah,
like slow,
that's what I'm saying.
fast.
Like, that fight, stylistically, I'm like... That's
be
exciting.
the
I'm going to get that
battle
in the shop. Like, you should come and watch that.
Yeah, I'll be there.
It's going to be a...
I love bare knuckle, mate. I think it's class.
sort of,
It's sick.
I was real sceptical. I was like... I thought it was savage. Like, we come from MMA.
It's still
but like,
technical.
for some reason, I didn't get on with it.
Well, it sounds like backyard gypsy style all the
that's
time,
the
doesn't
problem,
it? That's what we know by in it.
Yeah,
Like
hay bales.
For sure.
And
Most
there is still that.
Yeah, that's cool to watch.
Just when I started watching, like, it was, which fight was it? It was Chad Mendes against Eddie Alvarez.
Yeah, that was good.
And I was like, oh,
This
this ain't just like
they were
brawling,
precise
mate.
and
This is
technical.
just a sick fight with no gloves on. That adds like a real good variant.
Yeah.
Like, and I think it reminds me of like early UFC now.
Yeah.
Do you know what I
It
mean?
looks like
it's
100%.
real, like,
early UFC
raw.
it was bare knuckle, really, wasn't it? Like,
Yeah.
I'm sure the first two UFCs.
Yeah, bro, it was headbutts, everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll see
it
clips
was
and get
crazy.
confused now of the two. Like,
Yeah.
you've got to check when it's
Yeah.
from.
Matt
definitely.
Coleman just headbutting people, man. Mounting people and just smashing
double
them.
wrist
Yeah.
headbutts.
Double
Yeah,
wrist
it's
headbutt.
Class, man. Oh, class.
Such
You
a
know who
ruthless.
was it Tank Abbott?
Sit still.
Pulls someone out of the fucking cage. I'm sure it was Tank Abbott.
It will have been,
He
bro.
picks him up and just throws him, or he tries to throw him out the cage. And the ref at the time,
The Great Cali.
Big John.
Big John McCarthy, I'm sure he kind of like stopped it and was like, I don't really know what to do about this. And I had to make a rule that there was no
Mate,
fucking...
there's so
He's
much
just
mad
guiding the
shit
play
going
because he
on
doesn't know how to
early
call.
days, mate. Some crazy shit going on, wasn't there? People just like attacking the groin.
Yeah.
Tagging
Headbutt
it.
to the dick.
Just like,
Which
viciously
is
going after the groin, mate.
that's not
Straight
true.
up helmet on helmet contact.
It's efficient.
Take that.
Speaking of fights though, in like sort of viral clips,
Yeah. We've got to discuss
we
it.
became aware of you because you kind of went semi-viral in this area
Yeah.
because of one of your fights in Thailand.
Yeah.
Got to discuss that.
Mate, it was just the maddest thing in my whole life, bro.
The
was
fight or
crazy,
being
mate,
out
because-
there in general.
Yeah, man, because this is probably like I'd been training like 2-3 years, and I'd still not won a fight. So I'd competed in kickboxing, etc. Yeah, but I'd still not won a fight, mate. And here I am taking a fight on a week's notice against someone from the same gym I'm at, like a massive gym. I'm fucked with food poisoning. Like the only reason I could make 70 kilos on the day was because I didn't eat for 3 days.
You kept shitting.
Bro, I'm
Liquid
literally
ass.
like, I've got nothing left. I'm just like throwing up and shitting.
Just grit left at this
But
point.
I check my weight, I'm like, oh, I'm actually quite close here. So,
Yes.
so you imagine
Food
what's
poisoning.
going through my head, mate. I'm like, it's my first ever MMA fight. I'd still not got a combat sports win. And I'm fighting in Thailand, mate, on a week's notice.
And you're fighting your
And
guts.
the opponent was was skilled. He was a well-known sort of guy in the gym, or he was an up-and-coming guy in the gym.
Yeah, like he was like one of their little like prodigy guys. Do you know what I mean? Like he's a sick grappler. Do you know what I mean? Like he'd won a lot of stuff, ADCC, etc. He's a high skill grappler. So here I am. I'm going up against this guy. Ended up finishing him in the second round. Like it was just insane.
Which was spectacular.
Yeah, man.
It was
spectacular.
It was
nice.
mad, bro. And the people who were there and stuff, it was crazy. Like,
do you feel like obviously going through all of like the food poisoning and stuff, being in a different country? Because I mean, being in combat sports for a couple of years and taking time out to go to Thailand to train is a pretty fucking savage thing to do.
That's a
in my
gamble.
opinion.
But the travelling it makes you so.
Yeah,
for sure.
so effectively, what you've got into that fight knowing I've been through the fucking trenches here.
Yeah,
do you think
sure.
that did something for you mentally in the fight?
Definitely.
Or do you think you were just on survival mode?
Mate, I just got into a mad flow, mate.
Yeah.
I got into a mad flow. I've been doing loads of like breath work, which sounds so daft. It's fighting.
I don't
but I
think
was
it does.
doing loads of breath work with this guy who's just like, I've got a lot of respect for this guy. He's like this mobility like breath work guy, and he did a lot for me, mate. So I was doing these breathe exercises and that, and I just got into a mad flow state, mate. The flight just went. I wasn't thinking nothing. Before I know it's over, I'm like, what the fuck is going on here?
How did that feel?
Yeah, it was just, bro, it's the best feeling I've ever had in my entire life.
Yeah.
I'll be chasing that forever.
Because all we've really seen is the clip of how it finished.
Yeah.
Was the fight hard?
Yeah. I got took down the first.
Right.
Yeah, I got took down the first, and then I've fought my way back up. He kept just pinning me on the fence, mate. You know, just like that. That's like kind of the meta in MMA right now. It's just like pinning people on the fence and just holding them there.
Stick a shoulder in it.
I find it boring to watch.
It feels so strong as well, mate. It's just like the Asian kid.
They're sending it. Like, you got to understand when they grip you in a competition, it's maximal a lot of the time. They're not, especially in the early doors amateur, so they're going to feel like the strongest person.
Yeah, it just felt so strong, mate. Because obviously he's just like holding on to it with, like you say, with everything, mate. But yeah, it was just a crazy experience. Like, I look over at the judges and there's just Brendan Loughnane just judging my fight, which is like one that he just won last year. He just won the £1 million in PFL, won the PFL. Crazy, and there's like D-Rod from the UFC, mate. He's there.
Fair enough, mate.
And then we finished the fight, and it's like I'm going against Stone with D-Rod, and it's fucking crazy, bro.
Are you got plans to go back as well?
You what?
Do you have plans to go back as well?
100%. I'll be there. I think in about a month, bro.
Yeah, that's
so
awesome.
I'm going back. Like it's so big for. I feel like your development and that. I should probably go to different places, defo. But I just like Thailand. I feel like the setup's so good, mate.
Well,
like,
I mean,
you can just get so good.
It's the full culture, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
man. It's like exactly. Like the whole lifestyle's crazy. Like you just. It's for a fighter. I think that's like the dream. It's like that. It's amazing, bro. Because like here, it's shit. Like it's like rainy. Like between sessions, you're just like inside.
You don't buzz off of the melatonin in the air, do you? There's
no, mate. You go into the beach like having a coconut in between sessions, and you're in the sea and you're just chilling. And
it's a different level of comfort, isn't it? Because at home here, you've got your PlayStation at home and. You've got like your missus and that there, if you've got one. You've got a level of comfort that I think makes you lazy over here because they're all sort of fat guy comforts. Over there, fat guy comforts. Like I'm the worst for it, mate. I'm a fat guy. Like, I shouldn't
You're
be
a comfortable guy, right? Come on.
Guy, but I feel like over there you've got comforts that are like motivating. That they're like,
The sun is life changing.
But also, how are you going to get fat when you can't keep food down?
That's true.
It's true.
Anything other than cheese toasties is it's just a nightmare, isn't it?
That's true.
I think people in England don't get that they can just go somewhere else where it is warm and live there.
Yeah, but it's the British way to pretend we don't want to.
And complain about it.
We hate what we've got, but we're not going to do anything about it. Right? That's
apathy.
So we like being apathetic.
So, obviously, we're starting to take on my time now, but what I want from both of you is just three things, three reasons to get into the sport or why they should come to Beverley Combat Academy, because obviously you've got a lot of fighters there. You've got a really good relationship with all the other MMA gyms. Yeah. Just three tips on how to get into the sport, why to get into the sport, and why to come to you.
Okay. I think if you want to get into the sport, what you should do is you should book one session at the 3 to 5 gyms in your local area. Do it over, 3 or 4 weeks or something. And just go in and just take stock of what you see. Talk to people, have conversations with people on the side of the mat after class, before class. Go into the session, see how the coaches bring you in. and introduce you to the space and how they treat you after the session. If you do that, you'll get a generally good idea of what the culture is like, of what you're looking for. And then you can select based on what you want from a gym, and go with a team that suits you. That's what I think is the best thing to do if you want to get into it. Eddie, what about you?
I'd say for confidence, purpose, and just like health, mate. You know what I mean? Like I'd say that are the main things.
Yeah.
Like for me, to give me a purpose. Like when I first walked into a gym at 17, I'd never felt anything like that. I'd played football, various sports growing up, but then when I went into a gym, like I'd never felt like something that I'd give me purpose like that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's different. Like obviously playing rugby is one thing.
Yeah.
Combat sport is I agree with the purpose. Like,
yeah, it gave me a purpose in my life, mate, that I just was lost.
Yeah.
I didn't have anything. Like I always sort of thought I'd be alright in life. Like I'd find my way, but then when I found that, I was like, oh shit, I need to just do this.
That's something,
it's
yeah.
massive.
Yeah.
As well, the confidence it gives you is huge, mate.
Yeah.
Because when you can like handle yourself, you
don't need to prove it so much.
Exactly,
Yeah,
bro.
yeah,
so
yeah.
you're just
That's
so
it.
much more comfortable with who you
Yeah.
are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I think it's so big, mate. Just being able to truly be yourself, and I think martial arts unlocks that for sure. And just fitness, mate.
It
Feeling
takes away the
strong.
anxiety, doesn't it?
If the gym
Yeah.
doesn't let you be yourself, it is probably not
Yeah,
the right
not the
place
gym
to
for
be.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So the last one, why Beverley Combat Academy?
We'll let you be yourself.
That for sure,
Perfect.
100%,
Perfect
mate.
answer.
I will say, as someone that's done a session there as well, it was a couple of years back, wasn't it? That came
Yeah.
to you. It was when it was still like up and coming.
Yeah.
It's a much more polished environment now, isn't it?
Yeah.
I've not followed up with the sport myself, but it was a properly welcoming environment, and like
Good.
the session was well structured. And do you know what? Like you said, I hadn't even cottoned on to the fact, but like you said, after the session, how you get approached by the coaches, because you came up to us, you're like, how was that? And I can't remember the name of the other guy that was teaching. Was it Carl?
Yeah, Carl.
Yeah, Carl was teaching us as well. Both just real sound, real welcoming. For someone that's never done jiu-jitsu, that was really important, I think. And were it not for like injuries and stuff, I would have definitely kept going.
Yeah.
So I think like it is a perfect environment for anyone wanting to start that way.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's not a lot of ego, mate.
Not at all.
Like a lot of fight gyms, you will go in and you got big egos, mate.
Everyone was wanting to help. And
There's a double edge with that, isn't there? Because there's for success at any elite level at anything, there has to be an element of ego.
For sure.
But it has to be. I think it should be funneled in the right
It's gotta be
direction. It should be
tempered, hasn't it?
tamed, tempered. So fair dues if you think you are the best and you want to be the best. We've got space for that. But I'd just create a space in my gym, like a structure
And a
that
time
allows
period.
that person to
Yeah.
funnel up into the right spaces. There in my gym is a funnel. If you want to just hit pads and you want to enjoy martial arts and the benefits that it gives for your health, there's a space for that. If you want to take it and do contact and spar, we got a place for that. If you want to send it and go crazy, be a mental professional athlete, I've made a space for that.
Yeah.
Now
There's a little
now it's
corner
just
for you.
filling. It's not a little corner. It's a big corner, right?
Yeah.
So we just funnel you to the right space because ultimately, unless we do that, things can get mishmashed, and then it just becomes like survival of the fittest. People just get. It's not right for everyone.
Which
Yeah.
puts people off the sport.
Yeah,
doesn't it?
yeah,
You
yeah.
know what
For
I mean?
sure, for
I feel like boxing gyms have that a lot.
Yeah.
They do.
That's where boxing gyms go wrong, and it's why for all I've only ever
Yeah, they
boxed,
can break you,
I
mate.
much prefer MMA
yeah.
culture.
If somebody did a boxing gym with a proper structure, they are onto a winner because
Agreed.
it's got the largest
Totally
combat
agreed.
sports pool.
Yeah.
People come to my gym. It's crazy, man. They come to my gym. They go, I go to them. Train 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Why do you do boxing? And they basically say something like this: blah, 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 blah. Arms. Basically, they like their arms. It's like what they say to me. Do you know? I like using my arms. And then I say, have you ever thought about like kicking?
Using your legs.
And they're like, no. I don't like my legs. It's basically what they're saying.
Yeah.
And I go, and then I ask them about the gym routine. They don't train their legs. They just don't have a connection mentally
Yeah,
with their
yeah.
legs
With
that
their
they do with their
legs.
arms.
Yeah.
You know?
I get that. I get that.
You,
Yeah, that
you
makes
might
sense.
even be in that boat
To be
there.
fair, I like training in like Muay Thai and
Yeah.
kickboxing and stuff, but I'm like, from being 16, I've done no combat sport at all. At 31, I've come back into it. I'm like, let's just take it one step at a time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I'm not adverse to you. Like, I actually find that kicking comes quite naturally. Surprisingly, comes quite
You
naturally
picked
to
up
us.
quick, didn't you?
Yeah.
It's a range thing because when you're short, everyone's like, get inside. But when you're short and you've got kicks,
Yeah.
you can use your kicks to counter the punches, and it allows you to drop underneath the rib cage, and it's nice.
But that was brilliant, mate. Thank you very much for coming on.
Cheers,
Thank you,
bro.
Wait, shit.
I'll come over the top afterwards. Don't
It won't be
Sounds like,
me without an awkward handshake.